See everybody here today, this beautiful, almost summer day. Hey, if you have a Bible, go to Matthew 14. I have a great question to ask all of us today, and that is, what is God actually doing in your life? What is He doing in my life? Because, life can kind of just pass day after day after day, and without any real sense that maybe a supernatural God is really doing something. And I think it's an important question to ask and to know the answer to. What exactly is God doing in your life? I know one thing He's doing in my life is putting me face to face with the responsibility that the church has, or the privilege the church has, to give the gospel to this lost world. And that's quite a burden. And I don't know if we can take the whole brunt of it. I know it's not my personal responsibility to win every soul to Christ who's walking the face of the planet. On the other hand, I'm a member of the body of Christ, and as the body of Christ, it is our responsibility, because the DNA of the body of Christ is in every cell. We do sense the personal responsibility of every person out there who has never heard the gospel, and especially every person out there who is being deceived into believing that the gospel is not true, which is a real deception in the world that we live in today. To reduce life to the natural life and to take the supernatural out of it. So here we have the Lord is going to take the disciples into a place that's going to test their faith and find out what they really believe. So in Matthew 14, we're going to start in verse 22. But just the background of this, Jesus has just done the miracle, which is also recorded in John's Gospel, chapter 6, of feeding the 5,000 with 5 loaves and 2 fishes. You remember that miracle? It was pretty fantastic, and very much impressed the people that were there. Actually, in John 6:15, in that portion, it says that the people were convinced by that miracle that Jesus was the Messiah, and he was afraid that they were going to just take him by force and go bring him into Caesar's palace or something and say, "Here's the King of Kings and the Lord of Lords." So when he felt that the people were really like maybe they would do something crazy like that, he did 2 things. One is he sent his disciples away. And he said, "I want you to go get into this ship." And then verse 22 says, straight away, when Jesus realized that they were, what was maybe in this crowd's heart, 5,000 people could do a lot of damage. So when he realized what was in their heart, verse 22, straightway Jesus constrained his disciples to get into a ship and to go before him onto the other side while he sent the multitudes away. So Jesus constrained and really he in a sense forced or directed, "I want you guys to get in this ship, go to the other side," which is they were going to meet at Capernaum, and I'll meet you there. And then he talked to the crowd. We don't know what he said to the crowd, but he spoke to the crowd, 5,000 people, and whatever he said to them caused them to go away and not to do what was in their heart. We don't know again what exactly he said. And then we see, so he sent the multitudes away. And then verse 23, and when he had sent the multitudes away, he went up into a mountain apart to pray, and when evening was come, he was there alone. I want to talk about the first part is just being alone. I don't know how much you guys like being alone or don't like being alone. There are some people that like being alone, but There are the people that like being alone aren't alone with God, though. They're alone with themselves. Maybe they're introverted. Maybe they are inward, or they don't like people or want to be around people. So they are alone. But they don't pray. They're not alone with God. Another kind of people are people that don't like being alone. I don't know which kind of person you are. I'm a people person. I don't normally like being alone. It's not my normal thing. In this world of technology, you're never alone. At any moment of any day, you can be connected to any number of people and have this sense that somehow I'm not alone. But the point of this portion is that when Jesus was under pressure, it was a habit of Jesus' life to be alone, but not just to be alone, but to be alone with God. I think the reason that we don't spend time with God is because we don't quite know Him as our Father. This is Father's Day, so we can give a little bit about our Father. But we don't know God as our Father. If we did know Jesus, or if we did know God as our Father, Jesus is our older brother, but God is our Father. If we knew Him as our Father, then we would understand two things about that relationship. One is, He wants to spend time with me. Now, my dad, I don't know, I can't remember how much time he wanted to spend with me, but it seems like we played catch a lot in the yard and went fishing a lot. It seemed like my dad, we played hockey all the time. He wanted to spend time with me. And then the second part of his relationship with the Father is that I need to spend time with Him. A child wants to spend time with his Father. My soul needs to spend time with my Father. So if I knew God as Father, then I would know, one, He wants to be with me, and two, I need to be with Him. But if I don't see Him as my Father, then maybe I don't know if He really wants to spend time with me. Or maybe if He does, He only wants to spend time with me if I am being a really good Christian or doing something like that. But He doesn't want to spend time with me all the time. And maybe I also say, well, I can live without being alone with God. I can live without that relationship. I mean, He's up there, He's caring for me, but I don't really need to have a relationship with Him. But Jesus went away and was alone. And not only was alone, but He was alone all night. When He finally arrives on the scene, which we'll see here on the boat, it is in the early morning, and Jesus had been up in the mountain all night. All-night prayer is something I'm not so good at. I don't know how good you guys are doing all-night prayer. I mean, I tend to get tired at like 10:30 or 11 o'clock. I pick up a book or something, read a little bit, and I'm gone. And then in the morning I wake up and I've spent the entire night unconscious, don't remember a thing about it. And that's how it normally goes. But not even a habit or a discipline, because we don't want to make it seem like all of Christian life has to do with discipline. It has to do with hard work, because it really has to do with a relationship with our Father. But you remember our message about Jesus in the garden, when naturally we get tired and want to sleep, and Jesus says, "Couldn't you stay up 1 hour and pray?" So I kind of use that as my challenge, not the all night. I mean, alone all night in prayer. I have to be in a pretty special situation. My son was dying. I was up all night in prayer. But on a normal day, that's not happening. And Jesus is not a normal day for Jesus either. But the point is that God is calling us to be alone with Him. Everybody away, everybody gone, all like technology off. I'm not even going to respond if it buzzes in my pocket. I am like disconnected and connected to God. This is the first part. Actually, there's an Our Father image up there. Can you put that up there and see if you can see it? A friend of mine put this up on Facebook. Maybe you saw it. Did you see that anywhere? Yeah, it's kind of a list of what our Father in heaven is like. Like what is God like? Well, this is what our Father is like. He is a real Father. We are very much assured. You can leave that up there, Sharon. Thank you. Okay, so now we're going to flash to another scene. So Jesus alone on the mountain, and He's praying. Then now we're going to flash to another scene. It's the disciples in the boat. And you've heard this story before. We're just going to go over it briefly. There are some interesting points about this. And then next week we're going to talk about Peter and walking on water. And that's a particular portion that we'll look at next week. But here we have the disciples. Verse 24, back to Matthew 14. But the ship was now in the midst of the sea, tossed with waves, for the wind was contrary. So Jesus had forced the boys to go into the boat. Some of these guys were teenagers from what we can tell. Maybe Peter was the only guy who was over 18 years of age. It's very possible that these were all teenagers, these young apostles or young disciples. Jesus forced the young guys into the boat, not like a gunpoint or something, but he said, do it. And they did it. They were obedient. And they got into the boat. They probably traveled about 7.5 furlongs, which is 4 miles, which is halfway across Lake Gennesaret, which is the lake they were on. So they were literally in the middle of the lake. The wind came up and it was very stormy. It was actually a supernatural storm that came up, and the reason is because Jesus said, be muzzled or be still, and he spoke to the storm and told the storm to be still as a person. So it's very possible that this storm was a supernatural storm that wasn't just caused by natural, what do they call that, meteorology, right? The Doppler radar type of thing, where you could see the storm coming over Lake Gennesaret, but actually maybe it just appeared and it was whipped up by some demonic purpose to destroy these guys. But the important thing for us is that one, Jesus is not present. The last time they were in a storm, right in John chapter 6, they were in a storm and Jesus was sleeping in the boat. If you remember that story. Jesus is sleeping in the boat. This is after that, and now Jesus is not in the boat. Did he know they were going to be in a storm? Do you think he knew they were going to be in a storm? And the answer is yes, he knew they were going to be in a storm. And he sent them anyway. Do you think that God would bring us into storms on purpose? He does. And what is a storm like when we are in it? We lose direction. We lose heart. We begin to fear about tomorrow or what the effect is going to be on me. Like storms have the same effect on everybody. It secures us, right? We become unstable and insecure. This is the effect of the storm. Jesus knew this was going to happen, right? He knew what this storm was going to do in these young guys' souls. And we can only say that he wanted it to be such. There was something he was teaching them about himself and about their walk of faith with him that they needed to know. And it had to do with his presence and also his power, because Jesus was not present in the boat, right? He wasn't there. Last time they freaked out anyway. I mean, he was sleeping in the boat and they freaked out last time they were in the boat. You remember that? You remember that storm? Storms coming in. They woke him up. Lord, don't you care about that we're going to die? And he was like, you have little faith. And he calmed the storm. And they learned that Jesus is present and he's powerful. But here he's not present and they're in the storm. And maybe thinking, oh, now we're really in trouble. Jesus is not here. So we know that Jesus could have rebuked the storm if he wanted to. Right? He could have told the storm. He could have made it so it was calm seas. He could have told, if it was a demonic storm, the demons could have been held back, but he allowed them to be tested and tried. And he allows us also to do that. Have you ever been in a storm? I think that you have been. Like, how big of a storm was it? My granddaughter having cancer was like a pretty big storm for us. Even a bigger storm for my son and his wife. We've been in some financial storms. Real financial storms. Storms where, how about relationship storms? I've been in a storm with my wife and I. There was a day when we had some struggles in our marriage, and I didn't know what was going to happen. I mean, our relationship was in a storm. And to think that actually, did God know I was going to be in it? Yes. And did He actually send the storm to me so that I would be in it? And my conclusion is, yes, He allows the storms, very specifically for us. So what is the lesson here then? Let's go back to that portion. So in the fourth watch of the night, Jesus went unto them walking on the sea. Jesus is walking on the sea. He's not walking on the calm sea. He's walking on the very, very turbulent and destructive sea. And He's walking on it. What does that tell us about Jesus? One, it tells us that He knows our storms even from a distance. Right? That He knows our storms. And you know, in the world it's difficult for us to say or to prove Jesus came to me. Jesus spoke to me. Jesus settled me. Jesus comforted me. Jesus directed me. Jesus led me. We don't, those kind of words are a little bit funny for us. Because they say, really? Well, how did that happen? And I believe that the Lord brings storms so that we can get close and closer to Him. Because normal life just does not bring us close to Jesus. We can live normal life without Him. Get up in the morning, I mean, you know what? Just get up in the morning, the sun comes up. It's not like, oh, look, Jesus made the sun come up. No, the sun came up like it does for every unbeliever also. My shredded wheat, frosted shredded wheat are in a little cupboard, and I use vanilla soy milk on my cereal. It's a little bit gross, huh? You get worried when you get older, but anyway, I pour that on. Some said it causes cancer in women. I was very thankful for that because I'm not a woman, so I can drink all I want, I guess. No, it has to be. Somebody said that. He wasn't a doctor, or he was, actually I don't trust him very much, but he did say it. Anyway, we put the milk in our cereal, we eat our cereal, get in the car, gotta get gasoline. Like, where's Jesus? Nothing. Gotta stop at the bank, I'm going to work. Get in, hey, how you doing? And everything happens at work, and get through the entire day. A normal day, nothing abnormal about it. And where was Jesus? Didn't see Him one time. Didn't hear His voice one time. So, obviously, this life, it's very easy to pass by and not see the Lord. Especially when He's not present in the sense of I can see Him corporally, bodily. He's not here. It's a spiritual relationship. So anyway, in the fourth watch of the night, which is somewhere between 3 and 6 a.m., apparently Jesus had been up all night. He shows up at the boat. Storm is still happening, right? So he's standing in the middle of the storm. Wind is blowing, and he's now standing outside the boat. Verse 26, when the disciples saw Him walking on the sea, they were troubled, saying, it is a spirit, and they cried out for fear. Phantasma. They thought it was like an apparition. They thought it was a vision or something. They become very afraid of the spirit life, the spirit world. If you see the spirit world, it could make you afraid. We have some people here that are reading about the Illuminati and satanic worship and getting like a little bit of a peek into like the spirit world, and it freaks you out. It like blows your mind to think that there are such powerful spiritual beings, and they are actually right there. These guys they thought they were looking into it, and they became really afraid, more afraid than they were of the storm, because they saw the Lord walking on the water. Now, why didn't they say, oh, look, it's the Lord? They thought it was a vision because, of course, they'd never seen anybody walking on water before. So they concluded that it can't be a man. Maybe they had some science, knew that gravity and things like that, specific weights and things made it impossible for Him to be walking on the water. They were afraid. A storm actually in their hearts about the spiritual element of life. And they didn't really know it was the Lord. Of course, it was the fact that they were already in a storm that made that fear even greater. It made it even greater. So they're on the edges of a breakthrough. So verse 27, this is the last verse we'll talk about today. He was immediately concerned with their faith concerning him, not their fear concerning the storm. Straightway Jesus spoke to them, saying, "Be of good cheer." He was more concerned about their fear concerning him than he was about the storm. When he said, "Don't be afraid," so this is what he said. David cried out for fear. He said, "Be of good cheer" means pluck up your spirits or pick up your spirits and be courageous. It's me. The most comforting words for them and us is, "It is I." And actually, he used this word, "I am," which is the same word for Yahweh in the Old Testament when Moses said, "Who shall I say sent me?" And God said, "Tell them, I am sent you." Jesus said it again, used it when before Abraham was, "I am." And they said, the other time they said it is, "Are you?" Oh, when they handed Jesus over to the soldiers, and they said, "Are you Jesus?" And he said, "I am." He used the same exact same words, which were the words to really declare that I am God. Really, he was declaring that he is God. The "I am" is here, a declaration of his presence. And then he said, "Don't be afraid." It's still stormy, it's still windy, waves still splashing over the boat. And Jesus said, "Be of good courage, don't be afraid." And he's saying that because they were afraid of him, but now that they know it is him, he has told them that it is him. Now he's saying, because of me, don't be afraid anymore. Don't worry about it. This storm is really nothing. And maybe they thought back to when he was in the boat. "Oh, it is the Lord. Oh, he's here. I remember what happened last time. This storm is nothing for him." Because remember last time they said, "Who is this man that even the storms obey him?" That was the last time they were in a storm with him. So now that they knew it was him, he said, "It is me. Don't be afraid." Fear is one of those things that we as humans are susceptible to. My wife is recently, her dad was diagnosed with ALS, which is a deterioration of your central nervous system. And your body, your muscles start to atrophy. You get weak. You get to the point where you can't speak. Finally, you can't breathe because your muscles don't work anymore. He's got some numbness in his chest. He's really hurt. This is a strong guy, an Italian father. He's 78 years old, and now they're watching. My wife is watching her dad, who she's never seen weak any time in her life, becoming weak, and thinking about us because he's only 20 years older than I am. And the fear of that future, of what is the future going to be. I remember when we had our first child, and when you have a child, you realize how absolutely helpless this little thing is, and how easily he is hurt. Like, very easily hurt. I mean, just bounce downstairs. Thank God their bones are made out of like rubber. Like, literally, their bones are like pliable. Like, a baby's bones are unbelievable. His head, well, they have a hole in the top of their head, but their heads are soft too. You can't crack their skulls because their heads are, you can crack them. But it takes a lot to hurt a baby. Because the Lord just knew these kids are going to be bouncing downstairs. They're going to jump off of tables, believing they can fly, because that's what kids do. They're out of their minds. My granddaughter's on the stairs. She just comes running at me and just jumps. Doesn't even find out if I'm looking toward her. She just thinks this is how life is. She just gets to kind of jump off of things, and Pepe will grab you. Anyway, that's thank God for little kids, but the fear that it can come into a parent's heart because of this child. I have to take care of this child. What's going to happen to this child? And you guys, especially those of you who are in college, and you think about, what is my future going to be? What is going to happen?
what's going to happen to me? Am I ever going to be married? Am I ever going to be am I ever going to get that job? If I get a job, where is it going to be? What is going to happen to me? Actually, life can be very fearful. And the major message from the Lord is, it is I, don't be afraid. And the storm's still going on, but I'm telling you, don't be afraid. Not because there's no storm, but because I am with you. I am going to be with you all the time. I am present and I am also powerful. So, I like this word. It says, but straightway Jesus spoke to them, saying, be of good cheer, it is I, be not afraid. That he acted immediately when he recognized that they were fearful. He acted immediately in order to alleviate the fear. And we know in 1 John 4:18 it says that perfect love casts out fear. Right here it is love made perfect or made mature. We realize that I don't love him, but he loved me. And that love, when it is mature in me, casts out fear. The reason we're not afraid is because we say, I know that Christ is present and that he loves me, and therefore I do not fear. I'm not fearing.